fucking
we had a whole
biatch.
talk about this, Connor.
Shut the fuck. Hey, shut the fuck up.
Right.
I don't have the capacity right now, but it will happen soon.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're live. Actually, we just went through that. We just had that discussion
Great.
live.
It's awesome because no one's fucking watching, so who cares?
All right. You ready, biatch?
Yeah, biatch.
All right. Josh, you ready?
I believe so. Skeet is out.
All right.
Let's go skeet shooting.
Yep.
Huh. Okay.
All right. You guys know the drill, right?
Yes.
Connor.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. I know what to do.
I also know the hammer.
All right. So Josh, you got your hammer. Connor, you get the drill, and we will meet back here in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, welcome back to Chapter Chumps, a reading podcast where 3 guys read a book and then talk about it. I'm your host, Connor. I am joined as ever by my 2 co-hosts, Connor and Josh. Today on the podcast, we are not reading, we're discussing a book. We are going to be discussing yet another short story, this time chosen by Josh.
All right.
We are going to be talking about Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. This was a very interesting one. I learned a lot. I did a little bit of a dive into the history here, so
I look forward to hearing about that.
Yeah, as Connor might say, I did some research.
Good job.
Yeah. So, yes, we will get into that in just a moment, where we're kind of continuing our discussion of short stories intermittently throughout the summer. There's going to be some movie discussion in there, too. Who knows what, if anything, is after this? We'll find out. Boys, how is it going today? How you doing?
It's going
Doing all right. Yeah, doing all right.
Busy at work.
Busy at work. I wouldn't know a fucking thing about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But right now it's the dog days of summer. You know.
You hear that, Nova?
All the dogs are out there. It's summer.
They're barking up a storm.
Yep. So
Connor is like, every time Connor takes his shoes off, he's like, I gotta let these puppies breathe a little bit.
Right, yeah, my dogs are barking. Yeah,
dogs are barking.
That's just the way it is. Yeah, whatever. So, so what's up, Connor? What is it?
Oh no, I just wanted to mention we were just talking about Hulk Hogan's passing. So I thought it would be nice to go around and just share our favorite Hulk Hogan memory.
Oh,
maybe Josh could start.
I don't have any.
Okay, well, Josh, while you're thinking of one, my favorite Hulk Hogan memory is I used to think it was really funny to do a Hulk Hogan impression.
Yeah.
And, so, you know, if I was like really just like, you know, just cleaning house, just totally like, just like stomping the floor on someone while I was like playing Halo or whatever. Yeah. You know, I'd be like, Hulkamania's running wild, brother. You know, like that was kind of my thing. I would do that if I was like really messing someone up.
That's awesome.
But you know, today it makes me it is tinged with melancholy.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that again.
Oh no, I mean, because then you would do it and you would just be like, wow, that guy, he's dead now, and
Yeah.
maybe that's disrespectful.
Maybe
Well,
not the best person to idolize either.
I mean, I
Well,
just
my favorite memory, my go ahead, yeah, go ahead,
no,
Connor.
no, no. I want to hear your memory, Connor. Please tell us.
Yeah, no, I actually, he was my tutor in third grade, and he helped me with my history homework.
You were taking history in third grade.
Yeah.
No, we had social studies in third grade.
Well, he called it history. He said he didn't believe in social studies. And yeah, he taught me how to wrestle too. He said that's a big part of history. He said the founding fathers actually they did wrestle to figure out the Constitution.
Yeah.
Like there was like a disagreement. He told me that George Washington and Abraham Lincoln had a disagreement on
This
what
explains
was
so much about your education.
the one bit of the Constitution that's
Yeah.
like we. I think it says it's like we the people or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. No, totally.
You
That's
know?
what it says. That's what it says.
Like they had a disagreement over that phrase because I think Lincoln wanted it to be we the peoples and Washington wanted it to be we the people, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
they ended up doing a wrestling match to figure it out.
You know what's really interesting? That's actually where the phrase "strong Constitution, weak Constitution" comes from.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
Washington just fucking destroyed Lincoln. I
He
mean,
did, yeah, he did.
and so the rest, as they say, is history.
The rest is
People.
that's where we get the term history from too. Incredibly enough. But
Yeah.
no, there is video footage of that wrestling match.
Just like there's video footage of Hulk Hogan tutoring you your third grade history lesson.
No, that was private. No.
Okay, gotcha.
That was private. And then the other memory I have is when he endorsed Trump last year.
Wow, two great memories. It's hard to say which one is better.
Yeah.
Terrible, but great.
Well, speaking
All right.
of history, and what we
Yeah.
learned in history.
We did. Well, actually, I mean, we did. We just talked about George Washington. We talked about George Washington,
We're trying
and
to make episodes shorter.
we're only 8 minutes in. Relax, buddy.
Because I can't say the time machine because that doesn't work in this instance.
Oh my God. Yeah.
George Washington had a brother who happened to be Irving, and he wrote the short story that we are going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
See,
And
that's pretty good for a
he
segue.
switched his first and last names.
He did.
Switched them around. He was like, Irving Washington is so fucking lame.
Well, yeah. Well, it's kind of like a pen name, but
Yeah.
the pen name instead of creating something new, you just switch them around a little bit.
Wow. We have 9 minutes in. We have learned so much already.
Yeah.
It's
We'll
hard
say about
to
Connor's psyche.
It's hard to imagine that I could have anything more to share with the group, but I think I do have some interesting and relevant facts.
Yeah, please.
To just throw out there before we really get into our book discussion proper.
That's kind of like the theme of this episode is we're just like throwing out relevant facts.
We're just
like
throwing out
each
facts.
of us.
And Connor, I'm
us.
sure you're going to have plenty more as we go through our discussion. You're a factoid machine.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, facts are running wild on the podcast, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Episode, isn't it?
It did make me sad. It did make me sad to do that. By the way, I do.
I know because now you know. Now you're like, oh, that man is dead.
Yeah, it's sad.
Never coming back.
It's a sad day.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, I got a collection of short stories of Washington Irving here.
Look at that.
Yeah. I went out to my local bookstore and I was like, you know what?
Barnes and Noble.
I'm gonna see if they have it. If they have the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Well, I got this for $7, and it has this. It has like this. I don't know, an introduction, where Alice Hoffman. An introduction by Alice Hoffman. She writes about Washington Irving. I wanted to share a little bit about what she says here. So, Josh, I think you mentioned that you chose this short story because you kind of did a Google search on
short stories in general. Yeah, it was. I mostly picked it out of name recognition and knowing the Headless Horseman as a
yes.
bit of pop culture.
Well, I think given that we are using this time over the summer to discuss short stories in general, this ended up being a very apt choice because this is what Alice Hoffman writes in the introduction. She writes, Washington Irving, America's first internationally acclaimed man of letters and the father of the American short story, was born in New York City on April 3rd, 1783. She goes on to discuss pretty much his whole life. But this whole America's first internationally recognized man of letters, father of the short story, I did have a couple things I wanted to figure out, and there was also this kind of a little bit more information as I went onto Wikipedia. Also says that Irving is largely credited as the first, as it says, American man of letters, and the first to earn his living solely by the pen. So there's a couple interesting things about Irving here, and especially in regards to short stories, but he's pretty much the first American writer to make it big in Europe. And, he's one of the first people to earn his living just exclusively by writing. And this is in 1820 when he That's publishes cool. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is, of course, his big story. But he also wrote Rip Van Winkle. You guys know that one? Rip Van Winkle?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever read it or know what the... He just kind of falls asleep and wakes up 100 years later or something like that?
Yeah.
Probably in some old childhood songs I'm just blanking on at the moment. But yeah, I did see when I was looking up Sleepy Hollow a little bit, clearly not to the extent that you have, that Rip Van Winkle was included amongst his works.
Yeah,
I'm definitely familiar with Rip Van Winkle. I'm actually listening to an album by a band called Rip Van Winkle right now. Happens to be one of Robert Pollard's side projects.
Hey,
Grab the voices.
That's really cool.
Yeah, just came out 2 weeks ago.
Wow, they just woke up.
Yeah, very timely.
He just woke up.
Very timely. Rip to Hulk Hogan and Van Winkle, R.I.P. Rip to them.
Yes, yes.
We also like to make Doctor Who connections on the show. As I was going through Wikipedia, there's a Rip Van Winkle reference that is noted on Wikipedia in Doctor Who. This is what it says. Tell me if you guys know this one.
All right.
It says, on the BBC television show Doctor Who, the 10th episode of the 9th series, titled Sleep No More, involves a machine called Morpheus that can condense a full night's worth of sleep into mere minutes. People who refuse to use Morpheus are colloquially called Rips, referencing Rip Van Winkle.
So ninth series would have been...
That's Capaldi and Jenna Coleman, 12th Doctor and Clara.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought I went back to the sixth, original series.
No. That's Sleep No More. That's the second 12th Doctor season. But the thing about that episode though is it's filmed kind of like found footage. So there's like no title sequence, and it's all the like from the POV of the little sleep dust you get in your eyes.
Weird.
Oh, it's a Sleep Dust episode.
Yeah, sleep dust episode.
Okay.
Hmm.
I don't remember the rip thing, but that would make sense for that episode.
Interesting. Okay, just a couple more quick things here.
I mean, Connor, you've seen that one. You remember that one, right?
Oh yeah, no, I've seen it, and actually, as you talked about the whole found footage thing, I did kind of remember it. I feel like that's a very distinct like aspect of that episode.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
They sing Sandman in that one, don't they?
They do, yes.
Yeah.
Or there's like, it's like a commercial or something that's playing in the background.
Yeah, yep.
Huh.
That's all I remember that episode.
Well, hey, we got a Rip Van Winkle reference in there. Anyways, another thing that Hoffman writes, I guess it's towards the end, says Washington Irving died at Sunnyside on November 28th, 1859, and was buried 3 days later at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery in Tarrytown. Now,
yep.
This whole thing, this led me down a different line of inquiry because I drive by Sleepy Hollow, Tarrytown, like pretty often. Every time I go upstate, I drive by it and I see the sign and I think like, hey, Sleepy Hollow, pretty cool.
Now you have more reason to say pretty cool.
Well, yes. But the thing that I was really wondering is when Washington Irving wrote Sleepy Hollow, was he basing it off of Sleepy Hollow, a real place that had already existed? Or did he create Sleepy Hollow for this fictional story? Do either of you know the answer?
I think I'm pretty sure I looked it up, and I'm pretty sure that Sleepy Hollow came first.
Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I also think Sleepy Hollow came first. I'm not going to say which one though.
Good one. That's some good fence sitting right there.
Thanks.
Here's the crazy thing. Washington Irving created Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow was not a place before he wrote this story.
Really?
Now,
I wasn't reading that closely when I was doing my research then.
He didn't just create it out of thin air. So the area Tarrytown, right?
Yep.
Had existed. And he's right.
That might be what I was conflating.
When he writes about like, these different Dutch, these places that were founded by like Dutch settlers and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that area of Tarrytown, I don't know if I'm going to get this exactly right, but it had like a Dutch name that was called like Slaper's Haven or literally something like that, which just referred to like, place of sleepers or like, anyways, it wasn't literally called Sleepy Hollow, but it had a name that was like
it was pretty close
enough, right? And then Irving is the one who actually coins and creates the name Sleepy Hollow. Huh. And then the kind of the like funniest, craziest thing about this is that Tarrytown, the village of North Tarrytown specifically, officially changes its name to Sleepy Hollow in 1996 in recognition of the short story. Yes, it's only...
That's in our lifetime.
Yes, it has only been officially referred to as Sleepy Hollow from 1996 onwards.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when it says that Irving was buried at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, that's technically true, but it's only posthumously true because at the time he was buried there, it wasn't referred to as Sleepy Hollow Cemetery because that was not the name of the town.
Right.
But today, yes, it is Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. That is where he's buried. And the namesake is because of Irving and this story. Very cool stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, I when I was looking it up, I saw that there were like tours and everything like that. I mean, they almost certainly renamed it for the tourist attraction. But it was I mean, I was kind of getting excited because it looked like, oh, there's this quaint little New York village that is within driving distance of where we grew up, and I didn't realize it was that close, or quite frankly, that it was in New York to begin with. When I was growing up, I just thought Sleepy Hollow was just like, oh, generic New England town kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, if anything, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I probably would have guessed it was in Massachusetts, honestly.
Right.
And so it's just kind of exciting looking at Wikipedia and saying like, oh, there's like ghost tours and all this sort of thing. This is probably going to be some like spooky classic Halloween stuff. Um, and I was honestly a little bit disappointed when I read the actual story. It was very different from what I was expecting,
Yeah.
and it actually made what I was reading on Wikipedia make less sense. More precisely, it made the hype and like the mystique around Sleepy Hollow itself make less sense to me, and we'll get into that.
Yeah. I do. I think I get what you mean because as I was reading this story, it starts off really strong, you know.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh shit, yeah, like we're just getting into it. You know, it's like 3 pages in or something. He's already talking about the Headless Horseman. I'm like, fuck yeah,
Yep.
let's do it. And
Yep.
then the next like 20 pages are here's this
Ichabod
fucking
Crane.
hero who beats kids and is a sniveling little fucking loser.
Yep. 19th century courtship rituals. It's like, what
Yeah.
the hell?
Yeah.
Gaston,
Yeah.
for some reason.
Yes, I also thought he was very much like that. Yeah, okay. Connor, was this story also different from your expectations if you had any going into it?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really read anything about it, but I just had a very vague knowledge of its existence. And so yeah, I didn't really expect it to be mostly about like uh, uh kind of like this rivalry over a woman's affections. Um, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it was a bit different than what I expected, but I didn't really know much about it going in, I guess.
Yeah. And that's kind of the other thing maybe we should just talk about a little bit before we get into the specifics here. But like, it's kind of funny. The story's called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and it feels like, you know, like in our modern day culture 2025, it almost feels like we live with the legend of Sleepy Hollow, where it's like all the parts of Sleepy Hollow that fucking rock and like are really iconic. That's really part of like our cultural, and especially when it comes to like Halloween, like but it's very much like our cultural like storytelling. And it is kind of weird to go back and to read like the literal actual story, because it feels like so much of it has been like scavenged and remixed and maybe even refined into something more compelling than what it originally was.
You know what was in my head the whole time I was reading this book short story was The Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors, like one of the openings of one of the specials where it's Krusty the Clown as the Headless Horseman. I just had that in my head the whole time.
Yeah.
It's one of the early ones because I see it frequently. So I think it's one of the ones I like to go back to every Halloween.
Nice. And yeah, I mean, sure enough, we see the Headless Horseman referenced everywhere. Plenty of like, it makes me think of like different cartoon like kind of like what you're saying, Josh, like cartoon Halloween episodes. It feels like,
almost every single one references it at some point.
Yeah, as a kid, it would be like, oh, Nickelodeon's doing their Halloween special of the Fairly Odd Parents or whatever the fuck it was. There's a pretty good chance there's a Headless Horseman riff in there,
Yep.
And Halloween costumes, different movies. like, yeah, this is something that it's like the imagery of it is more prevalent than anything to do with the story. And yet even a name like Ichabod Crane is pretty widely known. Like, I was familiar with his name, you know, so it's like it's not only the Headless Horseman, but it feels like there's really only like that surface level understanding of it that's been sort of disseminated.
So
Yeah.
sorry, I just looked it up real quick because I felt like I was missing some sort of reference that I should have, like a movie or something that it was in, or a TV show aside from The Simpsons. So I just looked up Headless Horseman, not Legend of Sleepy Hollow, but Headless Horseman. It's a more it didn't start with the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It informed the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow is mentioned in the first paragraph of the Headless Horseman's Wikipedia page, but it goes back at least to the Middle Ages, according to Wikipedia, and appears to come from European folklore. Particularly, they mention the Irish Dullahan, which I ironically know mostly from anime.
Yeah, Durarara.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. Um, okay. Yeah, yeah. So Irving is not coming out with the Headless Horseman just strictly from his
Remixing
own
it.
imagination, right? Yeah, but and kind of just like how Sleepy Hollow is itself. Again, like Sleepy Hollow is sort of his take on what was already like this Dutch name of the place. He's not. I mean, like, yeah, it's stupid to say he's not just like, oh, thinking of it, because you know that's pretty much how coming up with anything works. You know, you're inspired by
Yeah.
something, or you're remixing something. But yeah, so the Headless Horseman goes back a lot further than just this story. Yeah, I see. All right. All right. Well, you know, why don't we get into some of the specifics then? Because we've sort of talked about, I don't know, what it's like to be an American kid growing up, and you know all about the Headless fucking Horseman, but I don't know anything about Sleepy Hollow. It is a great name though. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll give a brief summary here, and then we'll just jump around the story and see what fancies take us. This story opens. There's kind of this framing device where the writing itself is from the letters of this deceased person, and it's like, okay, what's up with that? But like, it starts off, and it's really just describing North Tarrytown, and then he talks about, oh, the most peaceful, still place I've ever known is this valley, blah blah blah, and hey, that's Sleepy Hollow. And he talks about like all the supernatural, you know, oddities of the place, and how the people of Sleepy Hollow are prone to believing and perpetuating these ideas of superstition, you know, because of the strange kind of like space that they occupy. And then this gets into, hey, there's this teacher from Connecticut, Ichabod Crane. He lives in Sleepy Hollow. And then it goes into pretty much like, what is the daily life of Ichabod Crane like? Yes, Josh?
Mm-hmm. Nope. Keep going.
Okay. And there's a lot of that. And, you know, like it does feel very old in the sense that like the writer is kind of anticipating a lot of questions or criticisms from the reader. And I feel like a lot of times the further back you go in fiction, authors are doing this more and more, because like fiction was not as widely read and accepted and respected. And so like, you know, it feels like there's more onus on the author to to be like, oh, well, you might think this, you might think it's weird. How could a teacher be living in Sleepy Hollow? They're not making enough money to pay for lodging. Oh no, don't worry. They live at a farm. Oh, so they just live at a farm, do they? Well, isn't that going to be isn't that going to wear on the farmer? How long do they live there? How does that work? No, no, no. He's on a weekly rotating basis between several different farmers and stuff. Like it's all of
Yep.
it's
And he
all
helps
of
out with the
this
chores.
Yes, it's all of this minutia for pages and pages. That's just like, this is how he makes his living. This is the way he is. This is how he acts in Sleepy Hollow. This is why people tolerate him. This is why people like him. And yeah, and he's trying to head off any potential questions that an 1820s reader might have. Yes, this leads us into Ichabod Crane falling for Katrina Van Tess or something like that. Tassel.
Van Houten.
Katrina Van something. But she's impossibly beautiful and fabulously wealthy, and she lives on her father's lavish farm estate, and also she's incredibly picky about who she wants to be. Oh no, it's hard to try to court this woman.
She has huge tracts of land.
Exactly. That very phrase is used here.
Yep.
And Josh had mentioned Gaston before. Yeah, there's a Gaston-like figure who is his rival in love, Brom Bones.
I was also thinking of Biff from Back to the Future.
Yeah, but I don't know. I was right
Gaston's a better fit, but yeah. Those are like the two that were switching through my head.
And eventually this kind of comes to a head where Ichabod Crane is invited to this autumnal feast at the farm estate, and he goes there in such a haste, as in as dapper and fine a clothes as he can muster on a horse, as well as he can get, but they're all shitty. And he gets there, and wouldn't you know it, they're all talking about ghost stories, and Katrina doesn't really like him at all, and he's like, this fucking sucks. So then at the end of the night, nothing happens with Katrina, and he's going home forlorn and scared because of all the ghost stories. And as he's going home, he crosses the space in which the ghost stories are being told, and the Headless Horseman is there. And Ichabod Crane is scared out of his wits, but he thinks that he has to press onwards. He just has to get past this point, and he'll be safe. And he tries to go as fast as he can. He cannot outrun the Headless Horseman. The horseman seems to throw his head at him, and Ichabod is thrown from the horse onto the floor. He's knocked out. Next day,
no one knows. Never seen again.
Yeah, no one knows what happens to Ichabod Crane, and we get a whole postscript of, oh, well, here's some other stuff that happens that we'll get to. But it's left ambiguous as to, did the Headless Horseman really assault Ichabod Crane? Was it someone else? Is Ichabod Crane still alive elsewhere?
I mean, we know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, we do, essentially.
I mean, there's no real point in beating around the bush here. I mean, it straight up tells you he went upstate. He literally went upstate and just started teaching up there. It became a lawyer.
Do we get somebody claiming that?
I think it would be wrong to say that the story tells you that unequivocally.
I mean, it's as unequivocally as a early 19th century story would.
I think it's left open-ended enough.
It felt pretty definitive to me, honestly.
I mean, it's one man's retelling of. I don't think it's a give. I think it's a, that in itself is kind of a folk story that somebody could make up. Oh, that guy who everyone thought disappeared. Oh yeah, he's living wherever doing this and that. Like I don't know. It could be another story that people tell to pass the time, of this man who tricked everyone and vanished or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say, yeah, he probably just moved on,
I mean,
or
it says
or
it says
Brom Bones fucking killed him.
it is true. An old farmer who had been down to New York on a visit several years after, and from whom the account of the ghostly adventure was received, brought home the intelligence that Ichabod Crane was still alive, that he had left the neighborhood, partly through fear of the goblin and Hans von Ripper, and partly in mortification of having been suddenly dismissed by the heiress, that he changed his quarters to a distant part of the country, had kept school and studied law at the same time, had been admitted to the bar, turned politician, electioneered, written for the newspapers, and finally had been made justice of the £10 court.
Yeah, but like Connor's saying, that's a second-hand account.
I mean,
it's just as like the same person who's telling the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the same person who's also giving all the ghost stories, talking about the legend of Sleepy Hollow. I think that these things are presented side by side. Yes.
He uses fairly definitive language. There's not like any kind of unambiguity from what I can tell. Sorry, on my phone the text is kind of small.
Well, the ambiguity is that it's just one person coming back with.
I guess so, but then the counter to this is that it's just the old country wives were just maintain that he was spirited away. It's literally a bunch of fake, like it's a fake old wives' tale. Is literally what's driving tourism in Sleepy Hollow right now.
Both sides are wives' tales, really.
Yeah, I think so too, because it's just saying like, oh, so some old farmer, like one guy said this.
So the way I interpreted it was, yeah, this guy showed up, probably, I don't know, trading, whatever the fuck, came down to visit, and was like, oh, like the way it's told to me in my head sounded like, oh, Ichabod Crane, I've heard of him. He moved away. He was a lawyer and now serves as a judge on the court or something like that.
Well, yeah, but can't you imagine just some guy at the pub who's pissed, hears these old wives' tales and is like, I'm gonna weigh in and give them and tell them what's really going on. Here we go, and he's just talking out of his arse. I mean, that's equally as likely in my mind. It's just down to the pub, whatever.
I mean, not with the language that is used in this paragraph.
I don't think the language proves anything. But that's fair enough if that's what you want to believe.
My thoughts on this, like I do think that the story leans more toward Ichabod Crane is alive and well, and he's living in upstate New York. I agree. I think that's more likely. But I think the reason that this whole passage is included here in the first place goes back to what I think about these old stories where, the fiction has to be like intertwined with some kind of, even if it's like a contrived legitimacy of like potential truth. And I think that like for the audience that Irving's writing for in the 1820s, if these stuffy fucking losers got to the end of the story and Irving was just like, yeah, and the Headless Horseman was actually real, and Ichabod Crane was really spirited away, and it was all true, they'd be like, this is fucking horse shit for children. This is not legitimate literature. This is fucking dumbass shit for babies. But instead, all he has to do is say, hey, he could have been taken away by ghosts, or maybe he's alive somewhere else and it's just a story. What about that? And then suddenly all those same readers are like, oh, interesting. And they get like the thrill of a ghost story, which is what anyone is coming to the Legend of Sleepy Hollow for in the first place, even in 1820. Obviously, the appeal is you want to read a spooky fucking ghost story. But I think he has to try try to like sandwich it between some kind of, you know, like, oh, but you know, maybe it is all made up hogwash, right? Like, and so like you can, as the reader, I think you get to kind of choose. I do think it's left open ended, but I think to me the real giveaway is the way that Brom Bones laughs whenever the pumpkin is mentioned. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so he was the headless horseman and he threw a fucking
Absolutely.
pumpkin at him. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he was the headless horseman, and he knocked him off the horse, and he was like, "Get the fuck out of town, or I'm gonna fucking kill you, motherfucker." And then he
Pretty
scurries
much.
off, and that's pretty much that's the likeliest scenario in my head. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
Well, but then I mean, like Connor, to Josh's point, like you kind of just agreed with him.
well, yeah, I'm saying that's the likeliest scenario, but I'm saying we also just don't. The story doesn't tell us that. We don't know that. That's just the direction that I think is likely. Or Brom he just fucking kills him and throws him in a river, and they don't find like that's that's possible.
I mean, that is
too.
possible, but
Yeah.
given the account that this farmer provides, I'm just trying to say
I'm not going to
I'm
trust the
led
fucking.
to
I'm not going to
strongly
trust the
believe.
fucking old farmer. Sorry, man.
But you're gonna trust the guy who chucks pumpkins at people?
They're full of shit. I don't trust him either. He doesn't even. We don't even know that he threw a pumpkin at him. He doesn't ever admit that. You know. That's. I don't.
We know a
I don't
pumpkin was
trust-
thrown.
I don't trust his laughter. You know, I don't trust his attitude whenever this subject comes up, and so that's why you're suspect of the man.
Do you have something to add, Nova?
But who knows?
Gosh, we don't actually know a pumpkin was thrown. We just know a pumpkin was there on the ground the next day.
Fair point. If you want to get super, like, what are the facts and don't make any assumptions whatsoever. But you're right.
What I did think was interesting about that is I was waiting for something like that in the story, because the headless horseman is described as looking for his head, of course. And then when Ichabod Crane meets him, he has his severed head on the saddle, like like there, and it is indeed his head, according to Ichabod Crane. Of course, the next day we see, oh, it was a pumpkin. Did Brom Bone, this was all just a flight of fancy from Ichabod Crane, and he just threw a pumpkin at him. But like this really explained the whole, again, the pop culture perception or personification of the headless horseman, because he's pretty much depicted with a pumpkin as his head, like all the time, right?
Yeah.
He has a jack-o'-lantern for the head, and I was like, within those last few pages, I'm like, oh, like that's where that starts, I guess. And then it kind of morphs more and more into like the Halloween idea of the jack-o'-lantern, and like I can see the evolution from it, from like this kind of sort of modest beginning, you know. So what the fuck about Ichabod Crane? I really want to talk about Ichabod Crane.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, at first, when I was reading the story, I didn't really know what I didn't know what Irving thought about Ichabod Crane. Like, there's a lot of weird details when it comes to him. You know, he comes to the town. Again, it talks about like kind of all the odd jobs and all the stuff he does. The thing that I thought was weird, like one of the first things that was like an alarm bell to me is, okay, he's a teacher, and
instantly, Connor, you're right. Instantly, I'm like, he's a fucking teacher, not to be trusted.
That fucking loser.
Something wrong with him here.
Yeah, and he's beating the kids, which in 1820, not really that crazy, right? And there's even a point in the writing where it's like, oh, but he doesn't just beat them for the pleasure of it. He does it, justly. And he explains to the child that one day he'll thank them for beating him. And it's like, Connor, you want to add on there? Because you...
No.
Okay.
Not gonna say anything.
But then when it comes back to, hey, what are the other things that Ichabod Crane does around town? One of the things that endears the many housewives to him is just how like soft and doting and careful he is with the children. And it's like, that's the same fucking kid that you were beating behind closed doors. You know, where's the consistency? Either you're going to fucking whack a kid with a cane or not, you know? And
Well,
so
yeah, it's clear he's doing that for the attention from the women.
right. And
Yeah.
so I guess the thing that I was initially unsure about is like, is this just presented with like, you know, no skepticism or like no further commentary than that? But Irving, I think, comes out very outrightly as the story goes on, and is like, no, Ichabod Crane's a fucking loser, dipshit, fucking scum of the earth grifter, you know? And I took a note here. Let's see. There's a lot of details. I wrote down he only walks the kids home if they have like a pretty sister or mother. You know, he writes a bunch of things like that. And again, I kept wondering, like, what is like the fucking deal with this guy? But then let me find this note here, because I did feel like there was a point where I was like, oh, this is where the shoe drops. Oh, it's in my copy, it's page 310. It's when he's at the party at the very end of the story. And he's looking around and he's like, I might be lord of all this one day. And then Irving writes, you know, something to the effect of how fast he would turn his back on being a school teacher. You know, how quickly he would immediately end all that. I'm sorry to like just loop around this, but I really would like to find the line, because it's actually a really great line. In fact, this is it. It says, he could not help too rolling his large eyes round him as he ate and chuckling with the possibility that he might one day be lord of all this scene of almost unimaginable luxury and splendor. Then he thought how soon he'd turn his back upon the old schoolhouse, snap his fingers in the face of Hans Van Ripper and every other niggardly patron, and kick any itinerant pedagogue out of doors that should dare to call him comrade. And so, essentially, I felt like this is like the most bare that he's shown to be. And Irving writes him as this truly contemptible, disgusting person. And
very much
it's interesting to have that be your main character, to just be like just a contemptible, disgusting loser piece of shit.
Yeah, very much that the attitude of "fuck you, I got mine."
Yeah,
yeah. He's very very centered.
Centered.
I mean,
yeah,
exclusively. Like that's his character.
Yeah. Also, I do want to mention the line you just read does kind of touch on some of the language from this era that I was not prepared for off the bat. I also read on Monday, and it's Thursday now, so I had a few days to wash that from my brain. But yeah, they drop a lot of N-words during the party, or during that middle part where we're talking about Ichabod Crane. Just like, it's just casually thrown around because that's how they spoke back then. And how Irving wrote, apparently. So
yeah, there is absolutely some racist language. Several instances
and depictions.
Yes,
and it's not just language, like the depictions of African slaves.
Yeah.
So,
for what it's worth, like I would not use that language otherwise. And yeah,
you were quoting. You were quoting a text from 200 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, still, it's like the choice of quoting the passage even. It's like, is that really I don't know if that's really the best option for what it's worth. I'm aware of that. But as I'm reading through it, that's just how
We'll
it happens.
censor it in post, don't worry.
But no,
you
I mean,
won't.
it's not, it certainly is, yeah, a very negative product of its time. Like we've read several older works now where it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of dated in this regard, but this one, which I think is actually the oldest work we've read so far.
So far, yep.
This one, I guess it makes sense the further back you go, but yeah.
I don't think it would make much sense in the Odyssey, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, right. Fair enough. This is certainly steeped in yeah, a lot of like racist normalizations of the time. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, there were several, like, right, they have it's a black person who delivers the message to Ichabod Crane about the party, and then like Irving even has to write like, oh, he speaks in such a manner where like he's taking the time to be so eloquent, and like it's almost cute to them, where they're like they're
very
just
speaking
so condescending about it.
Condescending, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's another part where Ichabod, I keep mixing up his name for some reason. Ichabod is playing the fiddle or something in a very animated manner, I suppose, and that has all the slaves like peeking in through the doors and windows, and describes them like stacked up pyramid style or something.
Yes.
And I'm almost imagining like an early cartoon where they have like the Bendy Hose animation style.
Yeah.
And it's in incredibly racist depictions of anyone who isn't white.
Yes.
So that's kind of how I imagine that scene in particular. But yeah, it was. Yeah. Those are like the three instances where it's like, whoa, they're just straight up going for the racism here because I'm gonna guess they didn't know better, but we know better now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that scene in particular, Josh, really made me think of a recent, very popular movie. Did either of you watch Sinners?
I have not.
I haven't seen it yet.
No. Well, it's
I'm going to see Star Wars instead.
It's a lot about essentially how white people historically have used black people, and not only that, but like essentially that even well-meaning white people, like when the rubber meets the road, they're gonna choose themselves. But Sinners is also a movie a lot about it focuses on music. Like it tells a lot of its story through music, and there's points throughout that movie as well that touch on within the system of slavery and within like the dynamics of structural racism. It's not just that black people were like well, I'm not sure exactly how to put this, but essentially that white people really liked the music that they made, and we're not above simply just being like, oh yeah, like I hate you and I don't think that you should exist, but it'd be really awesome if you could just play music for us because you're great at it. And like that's kind of what this moment made me think of as well, because the party is described as having like this really excellent black musician. But of course, to them, that's all he is. He's only there to play music. He's not getting any other benefits of the party. He's only there just to be an object that plays music for them.
Did I get mixed up? Was the black musician the only musician there? Did Ichabod actually play a violin at some point?
No, he didn't. He was just dancing, I think.
Dancing, that's okay.
Yeah.
I must have mixed them up. Oops.
Yeah, I've got the page open now. It was just the older black gentleman who
Okay.
had an instrument as old and battered as himself.
Yeah.
That's actually a good like writing
Yeah,
detail.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think otherwise, right? Like it could be fine is the thing. Like I
Yes,
Yeah.
feel like that could be fine, but it
with the
feels very
context surrounding
loaded.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so yeah, that is something that does not uh age well. It could very well even be a reason why a lot of the story is discarded or forgotten, aside from the iconography of it
That's very possible. Yeah.
all. Who's to say? Anyways, this kind of all I'm glad we talked about all that, by the way, because like
Yeah.
as with all things like this, we pretty much always, even though I know we're not really the authorities on anything, anytime there's like anything that's like racist or sexist, that we're like, we should
Yeah.
talk about this. We got to address the elephant in the room here, boys.
Yeah. Yeah. The three straight white men on a podcast.
Yeah,
They are absolutely the absolute authority on this stuff, aren't we?
yeah. No, I trust me. I know how that can be, how that can be perceived. Trying to do it in as good a faith as possible here. This all started because we were talking about Ichabod Crane himself, and I was saying how I felt like the story as it went on more and more revealed him to be kind of this gross character, actually. Wondering if you guys also saw it that way. What did you think of him in general?
Generally, I agree. When he first showed up, it's like, oh, I recognize the name Ichabod Crane. That's all over pop culture. That's just a name I know. Um, and as it kept going, it was like, okay, I guess he's a school teacher. That makes sense. He hits his kids. That's kind of how they did things back then, unfortunately. And it just kept going, and it's like, yeah, he's not a good person. It was really weird, as you said. It's just like, yeah, he's not that interested in Katrina or fuck, was it Katrina or was it?
You're
whatever
right,
her name is.
Katrina.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I have a lot of similar names bouncing around my head lately. Um, and he just wants he just wants her dad's land. It's very much like he's like the villain in every like cheesy straight to TV rom com.
yes.
Like he's even lanky and like the did your copies have like the wood carvings illustrations?
I did not have any illustrations. No.
Mine had the PDF I
Yeah,
found had some
I
illustrations.
have I have the illustrations on my copy that I own.
Yeah, he
Whoa,
looks.
your copy that you own, Connor?
I'm just joking.
Okay.
Well,
Oh yeah,
it's kind of like
He
everyone
looks.
owns it because it's archive.org.
I do see it though,
Ah,
Josh. Yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting.
he looks a bit like how do I put this? He looks like the old timey like the money counter that you see in movies, like a bank teller, or like the guy who works for the mob who just has the visor on while he's counting the poker chips or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what I'm trying to explain here, but he doesn't look like a good guy, honestly. I mean, it's not a lot of detail on a wood carving illustration, but as you get the description of him, this view of him does not get anything more favorable.
Right, right. Connor, what say you? Anything else there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if he's necessarily like painted as a villain here, but like immediately, he's not like doing things really with great intentions. I mean, he's charming the ladies with kind of presenting a facade of who he actually is, and yeah, all the allusions to wanting to win the heart of this woman for her father's land, essentially, which are all things that we nowadays are like, wow, that's really kind of fucked up. But I don't. It doesn't seem like it's painted as that much of an abnormal thing back then. Whereas this guy, the Brom Bones or whatever, he's this mischievous troublemaker. He's kind of like positioned as the villain type. So it's like an interesting. Yeah, I mean, you're right in saying that it's interesting having this guy as your main character. He's not morally infallible, not presented to be the morally right person either. But so I don't know. He's fine. I got to go put the birds to bed. Give me 1 second. You guys keep talking.
You would take
That's
a
all right.
tight two? Actually, I gotta use the bathroom.
Yeah, we'll do a tight two. Sounds good.
Okay, sure.
All right.
So Josh, you can number 2.
No.
All right.
That instrumental you were playing was pretty cool. I know that's us. I don't know what song that is, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's Dream Boy.
Nice. Sometimes you ever think that maybe we should just make like instrumentals to?
Feel like Brian Eno.
I don't know, man. That sounds good.
Yeah, we should do like a soundtrack or something.
Yeah.
OST. All right, you guys ready?
1 second. Sorry, just responded to a friend. I'm ready.
All right, Connor.
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, action.
All right. So where we left off, we were talking about like, hey, what do we think about Ichabod Crane? And there was some interesting mention from Connor and Josh about Brom Bones and how he figures into all this. Josh was saying, hey, Brom Bones kind of reminds me of Gaston. Connor was saying Brom Bones is sort of positioned as, I don't know if he's used a specific word, but like sort of positioned as the antagonist, to Ichabod Crane. Antagonist doesn't have to be negative. It just means that they're, like obstructing the goal of the main character. But it's typically referred to as a negative thing. Anyways, what I want to kind of go into here is that my whole deal with Ichabod Crane and not being sure about him initially, and then I feel like the story, I think Connor has an interesting point too about how the things that we see from Ichabod Crane like seem negative to us. Maybe in 1820, they would not have been exclusively. I do want to talk about that a little bit. However, the main point I want to make here is that my shift in opinion on Ichabod Crane as the story went on also sort of necessitated a shift in Brom Bones. And yes, initially I kind of was with the whole, Brom Bones, he's this fucking troublemaker. He's essentially like an 1820s jock meathead.
Mm-hmm.
But while I think Gaston is a very quick and easy shorthand to describe this character, I think the big difference is that he's kind of like, what if Gaston was good? Because I think in the end, we find that Katrina does end up with Brom, and none of it is really positioned as, like he stole her away, or if anything, it sort of comes to light that Katrina had been using Ichabod herself in order to like entice Brom even further. And this is also kind of part of her plan to get Brom to, more passionately pursue her. And so I think the way the story ends is like Brom and Katrina always had legitimate love for one another and had each been pursuing the other in their own ways. And Brom Bones, I think, is kind of positioned as like the ideal masculinity of the age, and is effectively, quote unquote, a good person and good character. And that Ichabod Crane is sort of like the sniveling fucking weasel, the the man who only does labor of the mind, who's essentially leeching off of the actual working men. I don't think Brom Bones is a bad person, and I don't think the story thinks that he's a bad person. I think that there's like this weird twist in Sleepy Hollow where the last, 5 or so pages, essentially tries to create this turn, this twist, where it's like, no, Ichabod Crane is sort of like unequivocally this rotten person only after Katrina for the wealth of her father's estate. And Brom Bones, who maybe you thought was going to turn out to be a total douchebag because he's in opposition to the main character, is actually pretty cool and has legitimate love for Katrina, and they're both happy together forever. And Ichabod Crane just sucks. That's what I got out of that.
I did. Fair. I didn't look at it that extremely. I did get the very, like you said, like meathead, macho man kind of vibe from him throughout the story. And so if anything, that made me see Katrina in less favorable light. It's just like, why would she want to go for this kind of person? But I guess it's just what she's into. And when it becomes clear to Ichabod, at least, that she's going for him, going for Bones, it's like, all right, at that, I guess she's made her decision. Like, she's not really a character; she's more of a MacGuffin in the story. So it's not like I can really judge her reasoning. It's just like, oh, she decided to go for the antagonist, and then it becomes, I don't know. I don't see Bones as a good guy necessarily when the choice is made. It's because, I mean, he then goes and plays this awful prank on Ichabod, as the story implies, even if it's not explicitly stated. And he seems to get enjoyment out of tormenting certain people like Ichabod. So it's like, I don't see him as a good guy, but he's probably not the worst.
Well, okay. Yes, but that's maybe the last major point I want to make here. Because it's like, okay, the Headless Horseman, how does this all tie into the whole ghost story aspect? And why does it matter that the whole love story culminates in like this ghost story moment? And again, from my perspective, I feel like the story of the Headless Horseman, yes, whether it's legitimate or not, whether it's truly a specter or it's Brom Bones, pulling a prank on Ichabod. In either of those two scenarios, I think that it's essentially it's comeuppance for Ichabod, and Ichabod is punished, not for pining after Katrina, but for like wanting her for like these very selfish means. And like I think that's also why Katrina is described as being so like careful and picky with her suitors, because like she's aware of how beautiful she is and of how lucrative and amazing her estate is. And so like, it's only natural that all of these people are going to be coming after her in search of that. And so Ichabod is just one of many who's like, oh, wow, get a load of her. She's smoking hot and she is going to inherit, the unfathomable riches, which will come to me as the man. That's a no-brainer. And so like you're right still, Josh, that like Katrina herself isn't a character with really much
agency.
Agency or focus on her. But I do think the small amounts that we get here, I think that Irving deliberately portrays her as discerning and careful and cautious because of all those things that make her desirable. And like her choosing Brahm is sort of an indicator of his like his genuine affection. And then ultimately, I think Ichabod is sort of like the stand-in for all those would-be suitors. You know, it's almost like there's like it's kind of funny because the story ends with like, what's the moral of the story? And then a character tells you. But in my eyes, I feel like the moral of the story, it kind of, you know, in this light, is that like the reasons for why you pursue someone matter, and that there are like just reasons, you know, to pursue someone romantically, and that Ichabod is punished essentially. It feels very much like an old fable. Like he's punished for pursuing Katrina for the wrong reasons. And had he been pursuing Katrina and his heart was, you know, pure and just, and he truly was smitten by her, then none of this shit would have happened in terms of like a story arc. But of course, that's not how it goes. And so that's kind of how the Headless Horseman and the whole ghost story aspect is woven back into it. Again, whether it's a real ghost or not, I think that it's meant to be. It feels kind of like a divine punishment for Ichabod because he has a black heart, you know, and that's how I took it. Essentially, the whole thing.
I think that is probably the right lesson to take away from the story. I wasn't quite able to put that into words, but that I get exactly what you mean there, and that if there is an intentional lesson to the story, that's probably it.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's tough because in those older stories, I feel like it's, I mean, usually not the main character that is kind of a little twat like that, you know. So it does put you in a position where you're kind of looking for someone else to be the antagonist, and I guess they are still the antagonist, but the person who learns their lesson is this main character. And I mean, going back to like Brahm and if he's a good guy or not, like I just don't think we have enough information on him. Really, we know he causes trouble and he fucking like he breaks into the schoolhouse or whatever with his friends and moves shit around to fuck with it, like. And so like it's all this stuff that's like just kind of funny, like it's not even really that devilish.
It's mischievous.
It's mischievous, exactly. Yeah, they mention him as a mischief maker, and he is. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think we know too much about him. I'm not going to proclaim that he's the picture of healthy masculinity in the 1800s or whatever. But compared to Ichabod, Mr. Crane,
Ichabod.
we yeah, I think that he comes off in a better light when you know, when we get towards the end of the story. But who knows? Because like I mean, obviously marriage in those days still was very transactional, but and I guess there's an element here where it was a dance between Katrina and Brahm, that Ichabod was just kind of caught up in and was being used in the same way he was using her. So I don't know. It's an interesting fable in that way. I think you're right. It's I don't know. It's a moralistic tale, but also it's like it's not like a Disney level thing where it's like Brahm and Katrina's true love wins over everything. That's not really
Yeah.
present either. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting because I mean we're used to those like Disney-fied stories, you know what I mean? Where this is not, we're not there yet. Culture wasn't there at that at that point when this came out.
No, we were a little over 100 years off.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a couple small details. I do want to talk about some other things, so we'll get. But I do think there's some small details that, again, I think from Irving as the author, like more firmly justifies Brahm over Ichabod. Even there's a moment where like Brahm is out causing mischief. He's with his gang. He's causing a ruckus, and it says like he wakes up the old ladies because they're all hooting and hollering and causing all kinds of mischief, and the old ladies, all they say is like, "Oh, there goes Brom Bones again,"
Yep.
and there's definitely some lines in there where uh the old ladies, the housewives, they find Brom Bones to be endearing. Um, and I think it's very telling that like Brom Bones, you know, not only in spite of like the trouble that he causes, but like considering it, Brom Bones is only ever himself. It seems through the lens of the story, like he might be hard headed and he might be a troublemaker, but he's completely genuine, you know. And yet, like there's still moments where Irving notes like people like him, and Ichabod. We see the lengths that he goes to in order to get people to find him endearing. He'll fucking beat the shit out of a kid and then he'll put him on his lap later in front of the mom and be like, "Oh, don't worry about it." He's a two-faced fucking worm. Um, and so it's like people like Ichabod well enough too, but it's because of the masks that Ichabod wears and it's because of the work that he puts into. Like he knows that like Ichabod's genuine nature is not something that like people like, because his genuine nature comes from the very line that I read before, where the second he gets an ounce of power over someone else, he would snap them in half with a smile on his face, and Irving's very clear about that. Yeah, we don't get as much on Brahm, but what we do get about him, I think shows him to be like more true of heart and have a heartier character. And so I do think that the story has more respect for him ultimately. But that's just what I think. There's some other things to talk about. I could steer us, but I'm kind of wondering if either of you have something that you feel like we're missing or you would like to dive a little bit deeper into. Is there anything either of you would like to discuss?
I don't think so.
Is that
Honestly,
enough?
Yeah, I think we covered most of the big themes of the story, and
Yeah.
I mean, the Headless Horseman doesn't take up nearly as much of this story as I would have hoped. Um, there was a lot of talk about goblins, which I wasn't really expecting. And in our modern context, I'm just thinking of goblins from like Dungeons and Dragons, so it's kind of silly in my brain. Um,
Yeah, it is
so
definitely a ghouls and goblins. You're right that it means something different at this point.
I
yeah,
think I just think it was funny how genuinely scared Ichabod was of the ghost stories and
yeah,
like walking
and how
into
he
the
genuinely
area.
believed
Yeah.
in witches and all that
Yeah.
witchcraft stuff. Um,
Yeah,
he
he's
named
kind of
us
an
another
idiot.
book, and I can't remember the name of the author of that one.
Yeah, I
It's like his
did think
only possession, and they burned it at the end.
that's right. Yeah, I did think that was a very like that was something that I thought kind of reached through all the all the datedness of the story. You know, when we get that whole bit of, like, Ichabod loved reading this book. He would read it by himself in a field outside his schoolhouse, and then he would have to walk home. And it's like, oh, well, after he read it and he had to walk home, it was scary. And it's like, if you've ever fucking gone to the movies and watched the scary movie, and then you had to get home, and you came home, and it's like you went there late at night and everyone else is asleep. Or, I mean, fuck it, even if you didn't go to the movies and you just watched a scary movie at a sleepover or by yourself, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's a very common experience, watching something that's scary, and then later, it's influencing your real life. Ichabod, like, walking through the woods and feeling like, the bugs are witch tokens and all this shit. That's just the 1820s version of, like, watching The Ring and then just being like, fuck, don't fucking put a VCR in front of me,
Nah, it couldn't be me. Skill issue.
Oh, come on. Now you're gonna act all hard, huh? Josh, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Whips.
I can't remember the last time I really dealt with it, but I do know that feeling of like, oh, I just watched something about, I don't know, UFOs, or like listening to a podcast talking about Bigfoot, and I go out into my dark backyard near the woods, and it's like, hope I don't see any glowing eyes in the woods.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, Josh, I remember being in your backyard. We thought Nostril Face was going to get us.
I have no memory of that. Like, the name sounds familiar, but I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Oh, don't worry about it.
We
don't
did
worry
think
about
Nostril
it.
Face was gonna. I think there's some video. I think there's some video footage actually recorded of that historical moment as well. We could find somewhere on the internet.
Yeah.
Actually, there's something I did want to. I do want to bring up is the identity of the actual Headless Horseman, not like who throws the pumpkin, but the actual legend of the Headless Horseman in Sleepy Hollow is pretty clear, because for some reason I remember growing up there was like this mystery about the Headless Horseman. Who was he, and like what's his purpose? And it just turns out it's like he's the story just kind of tells you who the Headless Horseman is supposed to be. He's supposed to be a Hessian soldier who lost his head during a forgotten battle during the campaign of the British marching down through New York during the Revolutionary War. Potentially, it's kind of ambiguous over the actual war, I think, but it was pretty close to that.
No, you're right.
Maybe I'm mixing up with my brother's spiel from the other
Josh,
week.
I was about to say, it absolutely reminded me of all the historical accounts we got from being at Fort William Henry.
Yeah. Great little fort. Nice little way to spend a couple hours before you go get lunch at Lake George.
Yeah, and and the Headless Horseman, he loses his head, I'm pretty sure, by cannon fire.
Yep.
And I remember talking about the cannons and being like, oh, come on, like, what's a cannon gonna do? You're gonna fire one cannonball at a person? And it's like, no. They had like that's what the grape shot was,
Mm-hmm.
And so that is probably how the Headless Horseman lost his head. But that's, really, really interesting. It feels like I like the way that he anchors it to history. It feels very legitimate.
Yeah. Agreed. Anything else?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about the whole postscript section here, because we were talking about the moral of the story, and I was like, this is what I think. But in the postscript, towards the end of the story here.
Oh yeah, they do put a lesson at the end, don't they?
Yeah, and so, like, essentially, there's like a storyteller who's telling the story, and then someone is just like, well, what's the fucking moral of that story? And for what it's worth, I kind of wondered, I was like, is this supposed to be Ichabod Crane?
I thought the same thing.
Right? In the future? But this is...
Sorry, I thought the same thing too. Circling back to what I was saying earlier in the podcast about how he's alive, like being a judge upstate.
Oh,
like
right.
This, yeah. This
Right.
also fed into that belief, and I just completely forgot about it during that argument. So
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. I think that this is definitely part of it. So yeah, whoever this listener is, Ichabod or otherwise, they're wondering what was the moral of the story and what it went to prove. And it says, the storyteller, he kind of sits there, he takes a drink of his glass of wine, and he says that the story was intended most logically to prove that there is no situation in life but has its advantages and pleasures, provided we will but take a joke as we find it. That therefore he that runs races with goblin troopers is likely to have rough riding of it. Ergo, for a country schoolmaster to be refused the hand of a Dutch heiress is a certain step to high preferment in the state. And I don't know, I kind of read this shit and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
you were reading it right now, and I'm still like trying to wrap my head around what the fuck are they talking about. I think the guy's drunk.
Josh, I'm drunk. Like I should be able to decipher this. I mean,
it sounds like if I had to guess, the first two lines make sense. It's like, or makes some modicum of sense. There's no situation in life but has its advantages and pleasures, provided we will but take a joke as we find it. It's basically like laugh a little bit.
Live, laugh, love, yeah.
Kind of, yeah, but not necessarily the love bit. But just find the humor in life where you can find it. That I get. That therefore he that runs races with goblin troopers is likely to have a rough riding of it. I guess it's just like, I guess if you're crazy enough to think you're racing spirits, then you're gonna not have a fun time.
Yes.
You're gonna get fooled, or guess you're basically Don Quixote.
Yes.
But in this last bit, ergo, for a country schoolmaster to be refused the hand of a Dutch heiress is a certain step to high preferment in the state.
Josh,
it's
now that I'm looking at it, I think it's actually exactly in line with your argument. High preferment in the state, meaning he's holding office. The moral is that because he was rejected by Katrina, it leads him to high preferment. He has a position of authority within the state.
So what this guy is saying is that the moral of the story is that the story occurred.
Well, I think that you're right about everything you're saying, and he's saying Ichabod Crane was stupid to think that he was really racing a ghost. If he had realized if he had taken the situation with good humor instead of thinking it was life or death, like if he had realized that, then maybe this would have played out otherwise. But instead, it kind of this whole bizarre situation leads to him having this job of whatever, he's a judge or something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is that if you're like Ichabod Crane, you're an asshole and do all this stuff, and then eventually you get rewarded by becoming a judge and have power over people.
But
if you're an asshole, you get rejected by a woman, you run off and go fuck up the government.
Yeah. Yes. It's lesser reward than he was chasing by courting Katrina. I mean, he still winds up worse off. It's not what he wanted.
Yeah.
I think the storyteller is saying he knows the ultimate fate of Ichabod Crane. I think this is kind of
maybe he's the farmer
way of putting it.
I did have a brief moment where I was wondering if the storyteller here who's drunk is Bones. And this is just like a couple years later, and it's like Bones and Ichabod just not recognizing one another. But yeah, no, it doesn't make much sense It was just a what if in my brain. Um, but yeah, the drunk is basically saying is that the moral of the story is that the series of events of the story occurred.
It's not really. It doesn't really feel like a moral of the story in any
Yeah,
way, shape, or form.
the point is that it occurred.
Yeah.
No,
Right,
but I
so what
I
happened?
do, as we're talking about it, I do kind of think that I do think that there's more happening here. It's like, yeah, the storytellers doesn't really have a satisfying answer to what the moral is. And I do think that it's kind of meant to play into the whole, like, what is the ultimate fate of these characters? You know,
Yeah,
the part
uh,
that's interesting about this is not that the storyteller is laying out the moral of what you just read. It's interesting because it alludes to, you know, what may have truly happened to Ichabod Crane.
yeah. I guess. I mean, part of me wonders if this is a difference in culture between when this book was published and when we're reading it now, and is there just some like context that we don't get as modern readers that we would have had growing up in the 1800s? But without doing a lot more research, which we honestly do not have the time for, um, I don't think we'll ever really know.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Um, I think really the last thing I want to ask about is what did you guys think about the town of Sleepy Hollow itself? Uh,
It
and
felt like it was.
and what about the Headless Horseman?
It felt a little like the story was less about Sleepy Hollow and more about Tarrytown, where they talked about Sleepy Hollow.
Hmm.
And I think Ichabod was on his way to Sleepy Hollow or passing through it at the end. It was a little ambiguous about where the schoolhouse was located relative to Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown. But that may have just been when I was reading the book and after work on Monday, and I'm just forgetting those little details. Um, but yeah, it was another one of those weird things where it's like this book feels like it mostly takes place in Tarrytown. As for the Headless Horseman, everything that I expected happened, and nothing really else happened with him. It was like he was headless. He was a horseman. He was a ghost. Um, he threw a pumpkin or carried a pumpkin, and that was everything about him. Like everything in his depictions, it's like everything about him that's in the book. So I was hoping for
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I was thinking the whole time about like where in Sleepy Hollow they have a Market 32 now. Like where the best place for a Market 32 would be.
I hope it's still just a price chopper, honestly.
I
Yeah,
feel like it would
we
still
can
be a
hope.
price dropper there.
One could hope, but
It's
I
stuck. It's
don't.
stuck in the. It's stuck back in time.
On days like these, it's you never know. You're hoping for a price chopper and you get a Market 32. That's just
Yeah.
You absolutely know that every Halloween there's at least 5 or 6 headless horsemen like scarecrows out in front of people's lawns,
oh yeah.
out in front of businesses.
As well there
People
should
get
be.
genuinely scared.
Well, is there anything else we want to say about this story specifically before we give our final thoughts?
No.
I don't know. I think go for it. Final thoughts.
Wow. Josh, since you chose this story, would you be all right with starting this off here?
Why not? Sure. Um, as I said at the beginning, I was a little disappointed with the story overall. I think our conversation has brought me back around on it a little bit, but I read it 3 days ago now, so it's not as fresh as the other two stories when we read those. I just knew we were going to be busy. I'm sorry, that was going to be busy Tuesday, and then we had to push a day. Um, but when I was reading it, it was very much like, is this really? Did I get the right book here? Because this is not what I was expecting at all when I suggested we read like one of the most famous American stories of the last 250 years. And it was very much a letdown, for lack of a better term. But I did see all the pop culture, or sorry, rather, I did come across all this pop culture um, references, but initiate where the pop culture started, and seeing that was kind of like I like that. I've always mentioned before, like this is where the thing started that I see all the time, and that always makes me happy when it's like I can finally go back and get the original context for these jokes I've been hearing my entire life, or something to that effect. So it was nice reading it in that regard, but I was not that interested in the stuff with uh, Bones and Katrina and the farm stand and all that stuff. The racism was yeesh, not a fan of that. Um, so I feel like I may have let us down a little bit with this book, short story, and if anything, that makes me want to vote on our stuff even more in the future. The just the random picks means that there's room for something like this to come through. But I guess we could do the same thing with our voting. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't really look into it that much. It's just thought we'd want to read this, and then it turned out we didn't like it. And this just happened to be a story that I didn't like as much as I hoped I would.
Hmm.
Um, that said, if you're into this stuff, go for it. It's a little it is dated. It's dated. You can't get around that. But I mean, I would not be opposed to taking a trip out to Sleepy Hollow next time I'm in the area. But it's I I I was hoping for more like thunder and lightning and the headless horseman chasing people through the streets, and maybe getting some aspect of the mystery that just got lost in translation to pop culture. But no, it's just a prank that some guy pulled on the guy hitting on his girlfriend. That's all it really is in the end. Um, with a title like the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, it really sounds like it's going to be what we consider like horror, or like a dark tale. It really sets you up for something like that, but it was a bit of a letdown. I'm probably going to give it a 2.9 out of 5. Just a little
Wow.
less than Young Zaphod, which is my lowest. So I think this is the lowest that I've gone so far. So
Yeah.
it's
Well, good review. I don't think, you didn't let us down in any way. It's this is what it's about, reading books we haven't read beforehand, and
exactly.
yeah, and some will be good, some will be not so good, and I think regardless they're fun to talk about. So um yeah, Josh, I largely agree with you. I yeah, I wasn't, very uh, enraptured by this. I didn't love it. I didn't love any of the characters really. It was like an interesting time capsule jumping into this time period, and reading some. I mean, it was just a lot of imagery, and in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, it was a bit too much. It wasn't as snappy as something like the Time Machine is. Even just like I don't know how many decades later, but yeah, and it did lean into kind of like this weird quasi rom-com feeling, more so than like a scary story, or a tale of woe or whatever. But I don't know. It's got interesting ideas, and then obviously there's something there's some morsel of this story that really draws people back to it, and we keep on harkening back to it throughout our culture. So it was really cool to be able to have read it. And yeah, I think I'm gonna land right there with you. I think I'm just for simplicity's sake, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna definitely echo some of what Connor said. First off, I agree that I didn't think this story was as great as I hoped. However, it does not mean it was a bad pick. So please do not feel bad about the choice that you made, because I think that there's a lot to be mined from something like this,
I mean, we talked for over an hour and a half.
right. And all that stuff that I read about Irving at the beginning of our discussion here, I thought that was really interesting.
It was.
It speaks a lot to Irving's his influence on the medium of the short story, and his role in legitimizing writing as a profession. Even this is historical beyond a way of just being oh yeah, Sleepy Hollow, I've heard of that. It's Irving plays a vital role in essentially ultimately creating the landscape of modern writers. When you go to the fucking romantasy section at Barnes and Noble, and it's just a wall-to-wall dog shit, cover to cover, just fucking AO3 fan fiction slop as far as the eye can see. In a lot of ways, you have Irving to thank for the beginnings of the road that led us to here. I'm taking some really easy pot shots. Sorry. So all I'm trying to say is, even beyond the scope of the story that we've read here, I think that this was a really interesting choice. And yes, it's I think we kind of all had this idea of what Sleepy Hollow could be, again, because of the impact that it's had, as a cultural idea. And so it's really fascinating to go back to it and be disappointed. The disappointment is fascinating, because it's how could this be?
I
think what is also really intriguing, of course, the story struck a chord to the readers of that time, and going forward, I think a lot of what we're finding disappointment in could very well be the exact things that the readers of 1820s thought was interesting. You have men who have to deal in their day-to-day lives with courting a woman, and having to deal with rival suitors, and the fact that what could feel like a very relatable story is wrapped up in this kind of supernatural set dressing. That might be the thing that made it live on. And so, of course, it's funny how the reverse has sort of flipped on its head. It's oh yeah, all the shit that would have resonated with 1820s readers, that can go fuck itself. But the idea of a ghost without a fucking head is sick as hell, man. Let's keep that going for all time. It's kind of crazy when you think about how much the sensibilities of readers changes over time, and where that leaves us with discussing a story like Sleepy Hollow that feels like an artifact, but by all accounts used to be a very electrifying and relevant tale. But yes, it does feel very much like the legend of Sleepy Hollow when we discuss it and when we talk about it, because most of it has been left behind. And yeah, I think rightfully so. Because, either you're jettisoning the parts of it that are racist, or the parts of it that are ultimately just boring and don't feel like they serve the ghost story aspect, which is what you would think. It's what you would think as a modern day reader you're coming to the story for, and yet there's the weird paradox that the idea of the modern day reader coming to a story like this for a ghost story only exists because of the groundwork that was laid by stories like Sleepy Hollow. This is the very, very early days of creating a ghost story of like creating what's going to become like gothic horror. And it's like, as with all things, you're constantly, this is what we're talking about with, you know, did Irving even come up with Sleepy Hollow? Did he come up with the Headless Horseman? It's like everything is a remix or influenced by or built on by something else. And like, I think that's kind of the bizarre disappointment we find ourselves in here. The framework of Sleepy Hollow has been built on so much that you come back to like the basement level and you're like, this is it? Because so much is on top of it, like you don't even realize. So I do think it deserves its accolades in that right. I do think there's interesting aspects having to do with everything we've discussed with like twist with the characters, who's good, who's bad. I think that's all there in the story, even in 1820. I don't know. I still struggle a lot with it, and I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
All right.
We rate the short stories out of 5, Connor.
2.5 out of 5.
There we go.
We
Thank you, sir.
we rate them at whatever the fuck you want to rate it.
2.5 out of 5.
I changed my rating to 2.5 out of 10.
Come on.
All right.
You're
Anyways,
going down. Are you really?
I don't care. Whatever you want to do.
Connor, no, you can't do this. Josh is going to change your rating. You have to have a legitimate rating.
I do feel like 3 out of 5 is too high when I'm reflecting on it, but I don't know. 2.7 out of 5.
Okay, there we go.
That's my final answer. My final answer. Okay.
So once again, I'm rating that higher than anybody else.
Oh, I guess so. It's not a competition though. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it was a worthwhile discussion. It was more fun talking about it than reading it.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah.
This is officially our lowest rated story, beating taking the title from Young Zaphod Plays It Safe with a 54% overall compared to Young Zaphod of 60%.
All right. Well, hey, I'm sure we'll get lower than this at some point. So,
yeah.
Any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap it up?
I said everything I wanted to say.
Stay tuned for our next episode where we will record, which is probably going to come out after some pre-recorded episodes about the time machine.
Yes.
Where we decide what we will be reading next.
Yes, exactly. So we'll be putting out the episodes where we are discussing the 2 time machine movies we watched. And then after that, we will be figuring out what is next on the agenda. So stay tuned.
Very cool.
If you like what you've listened to, I have no idea why you wouldn't have. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating and a glowing review. You can follow us on social media at Chapter Chumps on both Twitter and Blue Sky. What else, guys? Anything else?
Comment, send us feedback to the email.
Yeah, you can email us if you want. chapterchumpspod@gmail.com with give us your Sleepy Hollow story. Have you ever been there? Do they have a Market 32 or a Price Chopper? Let us know.
Did we come at this with the wrong expectations?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a different perspective, please weigh in. But most importantly, folks, until next time.
I do think Ichabod Crane is a pretty. It's a name that goes hard.
That might be the reason.
It's only redeeming quality.
This story has lasted so long. It's Ichabod Crane, a great name. Sleepy Hollow, also a great name of a place. Headless Horseman, amazing There's just ideas and names here that are kind of iconic, just because they're kind of cool. Yeah. So.
And then someone else was like, "Man, I can do way better than that." But good job on the names. So.
Exactly.
Headless Horseman on a motorcycle. That's also headless.
Hell yeah, even better. All right, see ya. Stream over.
You know what's funny